My sister's family is also moving in. It's been decided.
What on earth? I couldn't close my gaping mouth. I couldn't comprehend what my husband Bob had just said. Ignoring me, Bob continued.
I told Kathy about it. I told her we built a new single-family house, and that she and her family should move in with us, too. They were thrilled. They were happy because it meant they wouldn't have to pay rent anymore.
What are you talking about? I couldn't keep up at all. My mind was in chaos, causing a headache. But I somehow managed to ask Bob this. We built this house for Alex and his family, so there's no room for Kathy and her family to live here. As I said that, Bob, who had been in high spirits until then, suddenly changed his expression.
You tricked me. Divorce, divorce.
Hearing those two words, something snapped inside me. Okay, let's do that.
Huh?
After this, Bob, who witnessed the truth, desperately apologized. But we ignored him, got in the car, and heard a loud bang coming from the new house. The truth is, my name is Elena James. I recently turned 65. My husband Bob is the same age, but his birthday is a little later since he was born in the early part of the year. He's planning to retire and then work until his 65th birthday using the company's reemployment system. Bob says he'd go crazy if he stayed at home all the time with nothing to do. If he thinks so and wants to work, that's fine, but he's been complaining to me about various things that I'm doing, which is not okay.
It's good for you, isn't it? You can stay home all the time and not get bored. I can't stand that situation. Oh, working is good. It's much more fun than doing housework and watching TV. You can have this lunch.
I think it's outrageous that he says such things while accepting his lunchbox. He belittles the housework that I do, which allows him to take a lunchbox and keeps the house clean. But I don't voice my thoughts. Have a good day. I swallowed everything I wanted to say and saw Bob off with a smile. This is our daily routine. Once Bob was out of sight, I let out a deep sigh. I was thinking about what to do today when the phone rang. I recently switched from a flip phone to a smartphone, and I'm still not used to operating it. The letters displayed on the screen were from my eldest son, Alex. What's wrong? When I asked, Alex cheerfully reported this to me.
Mom, I'm getting a divorce.
What? Are you serious? I raised my voice in surprise. Alex got married to his girlfriend from high school when he was 20. They weren't blessed with children, but I heard they were working together hand in hand.
Turns out she was cheating on me. I'm infertile, so we couldn't have kids. But the other day, I heard from my wife's friend that she's pregnant. Well, I guess I wasn't good enough, and I caused my wife a lot of pain. So we decided to get a divorce.
I see. I couldn't find the words to say. Every New Year, they would always come back together, telling me about their year. But to think this would happen. But I have no intention of complaining about a decision Alex made. Anyway, make sure you rest well, both physically and mentally. As long as you're okay, that's all I'm asking. And if it gets tough, you can always come home. When I said that, Alex paused for a moment and then said this.
Can I stay at your place for a while?
I immediately answered, of course, come back any time. It's a small apartment, but it's still the house you were born and raised in. Perhaps relieved to hear me say that, Alex thanked me and hung up. That night, I told Bob about Alex. It might be temporary, but Alex might be coming back home. Apparently, he's getting a divorce from his wife. He's a programmer, so he can work from home, and it seems he can work from anywhere. So I'm thinking of tidying up the kids' room that's become a storage room. Then Bob frowned.
Why is he getting a divorce now? That's messed up. He's ruining everything.
Is there something you don't like about it?
It's just the way he goes about life. Marriage is about enduring everything.
Bob said this as if it was how he lived his own life. I decided to let it slide. Anyway, that's the situation. Alex said he put money in for the household, so there shouldn't be any problem.
Of course he should. Geez, what is he even thinking? Alex is just like you, making decisions without consulting me. Oh, this is so frustrating. It's irritating to think that a man in his 30s is coming back to live in this cramped house.
Bob grumbled as he gulped down his beer, then headed to the fridge before flopping down on the sofa.
Hey, there's no more snacks.
By now, he had a beer can in his hand. He's probably planning on drinking more. You should really start thinking about your age and drinking less. It's not good for your health." When I cautioned him, Bob got up, slammed his beer can on the table, and glared at me.
"What? Are you talking back to me? I'm the head of this household. You're lower than a housekeeper, so just shut up and do what I say. Hey, hurry up and get me some snacks. If there aren't any, go buy some."
He said that menacingly. I was too tired to even retort anymore. "I got it, just calm down. We have some chips and nuts. Is that okay?"
"If you have it, stop running your mouth and bring it here."
I got it. When I brought them to the table, he devoured them, and by the time the beer can was empty, he was snoring loudly. And a week later,
"I'll be staying here for a while."
Alex came back, and we started living together as a family of 3.
"This is extremely inconvenient."
Bob said that to Alex as soon as he arrived and stomped off to work. Alex shrugged and muttered,
"Bob really hasn't changed at all. In this day and age, if you act like a lord, you'll end up divorced and facing a huge alimony payment. Mom, you should take breaks and relieve some stress sometimes, too."
I nodded at his words. I'm trying to let off some steam in my own way. But you're right, he has always been like that. He caused you and your brother a lot of unpleasantness. I wish he'd be more mindful of that, too.
People don't change easily.
You're right. We looked at each other and laughed. Alex is the eldest son I had when I was 25. At that time, Bob was ecstatic to learn that our first child was a boy. But when our second son, Carl, and then our third son, Hugh, were also born as boys, his attitude gradually changed.
"One boy is enough, but you had to go and get pregnant with 3 boys? You're useless."
When I was pregnant with Hugh, the moment he found out the gender, he suddenly said this to me, and I was too shocked to recover. At that time, Alex was 5 years old and had some understanding. He apparently still remembers that situation.
"I thought that was really out of line. I was happy to have 2 younger brothers. Because there are a lot of things we can understand because we're all boys. Even now, we still keep in touch and are close. Dad is really a selfish person."
I completely agreed with Alex's opinion, which he expressed with a sigh. But he cares about appearances, so he hasn't had an affair, hasn't gone to a casino, and he properly provided for living expenses and education funds. I'll give him credit for that. But I still sometimes wish that his lordly attitude would improve. I knew deep down that there was no point in complaining any further. That's why I never considered divorce, and, just as Bob said, I endured and made it to the present day. In other words, our relationship as a couple was maintained by an exquisite balance. However, with Alex's return, Bob's behavior gradually started to become strange.
"Alex, give me $500.
As soon as he came home, Bob started asking Alex for money. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? When I tried to ask what was going on, Bob used violent language to blame Alex.
"It's obviously a nuisance fee. Because of your divorce, I'll be known as the father of a divorced son to the neighbors. Your crime for making me feel that way is great. You're making your father feel this way because of your own actions. It's only right that you should pay me a nuisance fee every day."
I had no idea what he was talking about. Divorce is a decision made by the individuals involved. Also, unlike in the past, divorce is not that uncommon these days. Some of my friends' children are divorced too. Nobody's going to gossip about that. I don't know what this man is thinking. His victim mentality is too self-centered and one-sided. I couldn't help but defend Alex. I don't know what you think Alex went through to make his decisions to get a divorce. But a nuisance fee? You're out of line. You should be your son's biggest supporter. It's not like Alex committed a crime. Even when I protested, Bob's attitude didn't change. In fact, it added fuel to the fire.
"Oh, you're talking big, but you're just a jobless housewife who can't say anything right. I could take a nuisance fee from you, too. Honestly, my family is a mess. My eldest son is divorced, my second son works for a small company, and my third son is a freelancer. Ha! What a mess."
Bob then let out his displeasures to the fullest and complained endlessly. A month quickly passed since Alex returned to our house. One day,
"Mom, I have something to discuss with you,"
Alex said with a serious look on his face. What is it? I stopped preparing breakfast and turned to face Alex. After a moment, Alex started to talk about something. When I heard it, I was surprised. But if that's what they've decided, I have no complaints. They are adults now. I don't mind, but are they really okay with that? I asked just to make sure, and Alex nodded.
Yeah, I don't mind. We're family after all.
Seeing Alex's eyes, I said, I understand, and accepted his opinion. That night, I decided to bring up the topic and was about to talk to Bob when he spoke first, interrupting me.
Do you remember Kathy? Kathy is Bob's younger sister. I think she's much younger than him, and still in her mid-40s.
Yes, of course, I remember Kathy. What about her? When I asked, Bob said this, unusually cheerful.
It seems Kathy's kids have reached adulthood, and she's finally free from childcare.
I see, even though they are still living together.
So I thought about buying her a celebration gift. What do you think of this? I have good taste, don't I?
Bob showed me a pamphlet for a Dubai trip. I couldn't help but smile wryly. Isn't it a bit over the top to give a Dubai trip as a present? I can understand it if it were for your own children, but giving it to your sister's family? I think they'll be overwhelmed. If I had a sibling and received such a present, I might feel more burdened than anything. Alex seemed to think the same thing. Usually he doesn't complain to Bob, but this time he intervened.
Why don't you choose a different present? If it were a domestic trip, it might be okay. But if you suddenly give them an overseas trip, they'll have to prepare passports and stuff. It might be a burden. So let's reconsider the overseas trip.
The two of us told him that, and Bob seemed to get offended and began to complain.
What's with you two? I'm the head of this household. So you don't have the right to complain. A stay-at-home mom and a shut-in shouldn't be so full of themselves. I'm using my money to give a present. It's none of your business to complain.
He slammed the table, stood up, and glared at us. He claims he is using his money, but it's clear that the money will come from the savings we had put aside as a shared asset when I was still working. So I believe I have the right to complain, but Bob probably thinks since he is the main provider, he can use the money however he wants. We knew he wouldn't listen no matter what we said, so Alex and I didn't pursue the issue any further. And about 6 months after that, "What are you doing all of a sudden? Come on, come on." I said that as I got Bob into the car and drove to a certain place. We arrived at our destination, and Bob was speechless when he saw the building in front of him.
How did you?
When I asked, "How's the surprise?" Bob swallowed hard and finally managed to get some words out.
I've never seen such a huge house before.
That's right. Before us stood a mansion that everyone would recognize.
What is this?
I answered Bob's question with a proud look on my face. It's a 6-bedroom, brand new house. It's not quite complete, but what do you think? Pretty impressive, right? The moment I said that, Bob seemed to be in a good mood. His earlier foul mood gone.
Alex built this? That's great. I've always wanted to spend my retirement years in a place like this.
Bob was overjoyed, and I felt relieved to see him so happy. But then, Bob did something unexpected. A few months after showing him the new house, just before it was completed, Bob suddenly said this.
My sister's family is also moving in. We've even changed their voter registration.
What on earth? I couldn't close my gaping mouth. I couldn't comprehend what my husband Bob had just said. Ignoring me, Bob continued.
I told Kathy about it. I told her we built a new single-family house and that she and her family should move in with us too. They were thrilled. They were happy because it meant they wouldn't have to pay rent anymore.
What are you talking about? I couldn't keep up at all. My mind was in chaos, causing a headache, but I somehow managed to ask Bob this. We built this house for Alex and his family, so there's no room for Kathy and her family to live here.
What?
Bob, who had been in high spirits until then, suddenly changed his expression, as if steam was about to come out of his head. He was so mad.
You used my money to build this huge house without my permission. That's insane. You said Alex was building it.
Wait a minute. Listen to me.
Shut up. There's no way I'm going to let you get away with this. I will never forgive you for using my money to do whatever you want. I'm going to divorce you, so you can never talk back to me again.
He was talking about divorce. Upon hearing those two words, something inside me broke. Oh, really? Okay, let's get a divorce then.
Huh?
Bob looked dumbfounded when I readily agreed to a divorce. He made a strange noise.
Wait, what are you saying? If you get a divorce at this age, everyone will talk about you.
I don't care what other people think of me. You're the only one who cares about that. You brought up divorce first, and now you're backing down. If you want a divorce, fine. As you said, marriage is about enduring. I've endured a lot. So if you're offering a divorce, I'll gladly sign the papers. When I said that coldly, Bob started to stammer.
No, I didn't say I really wanted a divorce. And why did you do this in the first place? Why did you build a house for Alex? And why did you show it to me? You said Alex was building it.
I get it. I'll explain, so don't interrupt me, okay? I gave him a warning, and Bob nodded meekly. You remember what Alex told me that time? I started to explain.
I want to build a house where I can live with my brothers.
When I heard that, I replied, What do you mean? You're certainly single now that you're divorced. But do you mean you want to live with Carl and Hugh? Carl is the second son, and Hugh is the third son. They were all on good terms as brothers, but I was still surprised by his suggestion. But here, Alex revealed his feelings and a certain secret that his brothers had been hiding.
Carl can't love a woman. You know, he's a woman at heart. But he doesn't want a male partner.
I see.
Hugh had some trouble at work and quit his job. He's a freelancer now. It seems like they're both struggling with money. They both called me and said they wanted to come back here. So I thought about it. I thought, why not build a big house where all of us can live together? Of course, when I say all of us, I mean you and Dad too.
Even though Bob had been harsh to him, I was deeply moved that Alex still considered him as his father. Alex continued saying,
Aunt, Mom, you've already retired, but Dad will turn 65 next March and will really quit his job. Once that happens, he'll have much more time at home, and I want him to enjoy his retirement in a spacious place. I know he's kind of twisted in some ways, but I don't think he's a bad person. I think if he had a new house and more peace of mind, he might become more considerate of others.
Then Alex shared his idea.
Actually, when my wife and I got divorced, I didn't ask for alimony, but Dad said that wasn't right, and instead, he said he'd give me a huge piece of land. It seems my ex-wife's family were former landowners, and they own a large plot of land near here. I refused at first, but then I thought maybe we could receive that land, build a big house, and all live together. Of course, I won't do it if you don't want to. What do you think?
After hearing that, I could see that Alex was trying to do something nice for us, his parents. Alex doesn't seem to have any plans to remarry in the future. Perhaps he feels guilty about remaining single for the rest of his life, even though he's the eldest son. But he genuinely wanted to build a big house for the whole family to live in and enjoy life together. If that is what Alex had decided, I had no right to interfere. If that's what you want, then I have no objection. When I said that, Alex smiled happily. That's why it took Bob to see the exterior of the house when it was somewhat completed. And seeing his joyful reaction made me feel relieved. But Bob betrayed Alex's feelings in the worst way possible. I can't forgive him for that. Alex was planning on telling you this afternoon the house was completed. That's right. When I said that, Bob fell silent for a moment, but then he retorted.
So based on what you just said, it means Alex paid for the house for Carl, Hugh, and us, right? But you acted like you built it. What's going on? My head is starting to hurt.
That's why I told you to listen without interrupting. You jumped to conclusions. That's why this is happening.
Huh?
I've never rebelled against you before. I knew you were a domineering husband, so I intentionally acted like an obedient wife. But I've had enough. Alex paid for the house, but I was the one who actually built it. You make fun of me for lazing around at home, but did you know I used to work in real estate?
Yeah, I did.
I wasn't a sales rep. I was an architect.
Huh?
He looked stunned. I've been involved in the real estate business since I was young. I have real estate and architectural licenses, and I've been involved in the construction of many new properties, but my husband Bob didn't know anything about it. In the end, it became clear that he wasn't interested in anything other than himself. I decided on the layout of the house and everything. I asked some contractor friends of mine to build it. We spent over $500,000 to make it a really comfortable house. Do you know why Alex and I went to such lengths?
No.
Bob looked confused, so I brought the table calendar over and pointed to a specific date with my finger. Bob looked at the calendar.
That's my...
Yes, your birthday. By the way, that's the scheduled completion date for the house. It seemed he finally understood what I was trying to say.
This was a birthday present for me?
It's a birthday present, and also a thank you for all your hard work gift. We were planning on having a big party on this day. When I said that, Bob turned pale.
Really? For me? I'm sorry. I was misunderstanding a lot of things.
I couldn't help but feel disgusted by the way he tried to smooth things over. You're such a boring person, only caring about your own interests. You're going to let your sister's family live in a house that your eldest son paid for and your wife helped build. Do you realize that? And the Dubai thing. What do you think family is for? Do you think you can do whatever you want as long as you're family? You need to get a grip. When I scolded him, Bob fell silent. After a brief silence, he muttered in a small voice.
If that's the case, you should have told me from the beginning. I'm not good at reading between the lines. If you say it's for your 3 sons, I'm going to get the wrong idea. That's why I blurted out divorce.
Over something like that? You don't get to talk about divorce so lightly. Can you imagine how much I've put up with your abusive language all these years? And you want to talk about divorce over something so trivial? Even though I was speaking calmly, my heart was burning with anger. Bob must have sensed it, because he stopped making excuses and started apologizing profusely.
I'm sorry. I'll talk to Kathy. I'll tell her that our sons and us will be living in the house, so they can't move in.
So please take back what you said earlier. This man is only saying what's convenient for him. My mind was made up. Reflect on your daily behavior. If you had listened properly, this wouldn't have happened. I don't even want to talk to you anymore. I'm going to rent a short-term apartment near here until the house is completed. Let's consider today the start of our separation. And let's use today as a starting point for the division of assets, too. That's that.
Hey, Elena!
He frantically tried to follow me, but I ignored him and quickly left the apartment. And so, the day finally came. The house was completed on Bob's birthday as planned.
Well, I guess I kind of expected this to happen.
Alex muttered this in front of the mansion. His other brothers, having heard the story, nodded in agreement with equally stunned faces. Then a car pulled up in front of us. It was Bob.
Elena, I'm moving in today, too. I'm sorry, so please let me live here, too.
As soon as he got out of the car, Bob got on his knees in a dramatic display of apology. The kids looked at each other, shook their heads, and then Alex, as the representative, said this.
Dad, please stand up. I have something to tell you.
Bob, thinking his apology had been accepted, started rambling on about self-serving things.
I never imagined you'd prepared such a house for me. Oh, I have such wonderful sons. Carl and Hugh, we haven't lived together for a while, but starting today, we'll be a family again. Elena is still technically my wife, since we're just separated, so we can still make amends. Let's start fresh, with the new house, and a fresh start in our relationship.
Bob was excitingly talking about these things when Alex, with a smile, cut him off sharply.
There's no place for you here, Dad.
Huh? Bob's expression, which had been as joyful as if he were ascending to heaven, instantly turned cloudy. Alex continued.
Mom told me everything. You think of us as a burden, right? You made fun of Mom for being a stay-at-home mom. You were ashamed of my divorce and demanded a nuisance fee. And you complained about Carl and Hugh, too. We can't be a family with someone who does that anymore. You wanted to give this house a present and start over, but you ruined it yourself.
Bob lost his words and fell silent. I quickly stepped in to back up Alex. I was trying to do something nice for the family, though. But you changed my mind. This house is for my 3 sons. There's no room for you to enter. Alex used the money he had saved for many years, and the land is in Alex's name, so if Alex says no, that's it. Besides, we're practically divorced already, so it would be even stranger if you were here. Don't come into our house, you stranger.
Stranger? Don't say such cold things.
Bob was teary-eyed, but it was too late to regret it now.
Dad hasn't had an affair. and has been properly putting in living expenses, so I was kind of getting carried away. But I mean, when you think about it, that's just a normal thing to do, right? I was on the receiving end of an affair, which led to my divorce, so I understand that all too well. You might have been acting like it was special, but Mom has been enduring much more extraordinary things.
Carl and Hugh nodded their heads, vigorously in agreement with Alex's words. Bob, realizing he had no room for further argument, hung his head again and begged for forgiveness.
I can't believe I'm being cut off from my family. What will the neighbors think? If a big mansion like this is built in such a rural area, it'll be the talk of the town. They'll wonder what kind of family lives there, and if they find out that only I'm living in that cramped apartment, what will they think? So please let me live here too.
I spoke to Bob, who was still saying self-centered things until the very end. So in the very end, you're not even trying to make amends with your family. You're just worried about your reputation, right? It's even more impossible to live with someone with that kind of mindset. I'm sorry, but we all feel the same way. We can't make amends with you. You should reflect on how arrogant and selfish you've been over the past decades. Now, everyone, let's go. When I called out to my sons, they all started to move at once.
Hey, where are you going?
We're going to eat sushi to celebrate the new house. But we're not inviting you. Goodbye. As we got into the car and started the engine, we heard a loud bang coming from the new house. Bob was startled and fell on his backside. I laughed, opened the window, and said to Bob, "Oh, that was the sound of a big party popper that I had set up a while ago. I was planning on surprising you with it, so I had a custom one made. Oh well, we're cutting ties now, so good luck with everything."
Yo, Elena, Alex, Carl, Hugh.
We watched Bob desperately chasing our car, getting smaller and smaller in the distance, and I felt that everything had finally come to an end. After that, Bob and I officially divorced. Regarding the division of assets, there wasn't much left because Bob had given Kathy a trip to Dubai. To be precise, he had formed some assets through investments and such, so there was almost no cash left. When we were divorced, I included a clause in the settlement agreement stating that the assets in each person's name would be retained by that person. Of course, Bob had agreed to this. Later, after realizing that there were almost no savings, Bob complained. But I had told him about my investment assets when we created the settlement agreement. You agreed to it, so it's too late to say you didn't know, so I'm not giving you any of my assets. You'll probably have a tough time, though. In the end, Bob left the apartment we had lived in for many years and moved into a small one-bedroom place. Bob was forced to get a part-time job to make ends meet, even though he had just turned 65 and quit his company job. Bob, who had never worked at a convenience store before, is now desperately trying to learn the ropes, being directed by high school kids. I heard that he finally manages to get by like that. Also, I'll touch a bit on Kathy's situation. In conclusion, Kathy didn't know anything about the Dubai trip. She apparently thought I had approved it, and when she refused, Bob had just gone ahead and wired the money anyway. After the divorce, she apologized for her brother's behavior and returned the full amount of the travel expenses that had been deposited into her account. It was clear that Kathy hadn't meant any harm. I just warned her to be more careful next time. When I did, she apologized profusely, saying she was sorry and Bob was incorrigible. I told her I thought we were now even, and that seemed to put her at ease. With that, I figured everything was resolved. Bob is now spending his lonely retirement years having completely lost his family. As for us, we're enjoying a comfortable life with my 3 sons. The 6-bedroom house is a bit large for the 4 of us, but our sociable third son, Hugh, often invites his friends over, making good use of the extra rooms. I don't particularly want my sons to get married or to see my grandchildren's faces. My ultimate wish is for my children to live happily and enjoyably. So even though I'm 65, I plan to continue enjoying these days with my children and live a peaceful retirement, appreciating every moment.